Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of Creators Outlet. Tonight's special guest, Mr. Justin Gray, who has worked for every publisher known to man on the planet.
Not true, but close.
Except for Gold Key. He's not that old.
No, definitely not.
And our friend Kevin Gillette from Inked Marketing is with us as well. Welcome.
Glad to be here.
So, Justin, you've got a heck of a spicy Kickstarter going on.
I do. It's the fifth one, and it's been a lot of fun doing this book. I work with a lot of creative people that I have a really fun time working with. It's one of my favorite projects to do because it's just sort of a release from reality and a release from basically anything that I've done before. So I really, really have a good time doing that book, and I really like the people I work with on it.
Boom.
Oops.
And we're soaring past funding and unlocking more and more stretch goals.
Yeah, we're coming up on the fourth stretch goal. I'm probably going to have to come up with some more ideas, thankfully.
It's always good when you run out of stretch goal ideas and you can start digging for more. So it's always a good thing.
Yeah, it's always fun to exceed your expectations. And thanks to all the backers for that, because I really appreciate all their support.
Well, the main character of this issue could only help sales.
Yeah, it's a great piece by Antonio Brandao, who is one of my favorite people to work with. We have a great relationship. And for this piece, I was just kind of like, we're going to do Lady Redbeard, but I want Kirby Lady Redbeard. And between him and Sean Forney, who's the colorist, that's what you get. And it's gorgeous, and it really stands out. And I just love it. I think other people like it too. It's a fun character, and I love doing these books where after spending years doing 24-page or 22-page comics, to just say, I'm going to do 60, 64 pages, no ads, it's just going to all be content or extras. And that's a lot of fun for me because I feel like, especially with Kickstarter, people want more. They want, it's something that's out of the norm. So it's not the same sort of product that you normally get. Plus, I like a big chunky comic, and to have it full of, because I grew up on heavy metal and Metal Hurlant and Epic and Savage Sword Conan. We just get these giant volumes of material, and it was great. It wasn't like, okay, it took me a half minute to read this because there were 3 panels on every page and 2 balloons. And for me, it's nice to have this sort of big chunky comic that I think makes it more memorable. It makes it more fun. Like it actually has some substance to it, both in the read and in the physicality of the book, which I think is important as a tactile thing.
Yeah, I look at this piece and I'm thinking, where's the black light poster?
Right. Oh, I wanted to do that. There's definitely, I've been like, how do I get to do a black light cover? But of course, it's probably ridiculous. I mean, I know glow in the dark covers are ridiculously expensive. So I'm like, I don't think I can get fuzzy black light posters. Well, it was definitely something I wanted to do, especially with this book, because it's such a love letter to that whole 70s and 80s, both American and European comic stuff.
Yeah, they nailed it with that cover. That really comes through with that piece.
And I work with a bunch of different people, obviously, Alessio Nocino and Chidi and Caval, who's new, who I just talked to today. And I think we're going to do another project together, which is a project that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I tend to do things that are very different from each other. So this project we were talking about today is completely unlike any of the other projects. But I'm excited because I think he's really got the right tone. I've been waiting a long time to find the right person to do this story with him. So that's fun. So he did this one where she's the third unlocked one at 15K. And this book is just really a sense of like, it's been exhausting these last few years, and like everything's like so heavy, and I'm going through heart surgery and all this other stuff. And I just wanted to do things that reminded me of what's great about comics, about escapism, about not everything has to be world changing or culturally relevant, or where you can just like open up the comic and spend whatever time you spend inside that comic and you're enjoying yourself and you're doing something that you can't normally do. And even with the advances they've made in technology, I still try and do bonkers, crazy stuff with these books. It's not for everyone. I'm sure. I'm sure I'm going to get in trouble. Sometimes I'm pushing the envelope on some, but I was just watching Superbad last night again. And that movie still holds up, and it's vulgar as hell, but it's also very sweet, which I think is some of the stuff I try to go for, especially with there's multiple stories in there. So there's Dudro the Barbarian, which is this sort of this. I was watching, and I can't remember it right now. I think it's Demon Slayer or Dragon Slayer. It's an old 80s barbarian movie, but it's so inappropriate. It's so like could never get made today. And I was thinking, that's funny to me. Like I would like to tell a story about a barbarian who just doesn't get it, just missed, whatever norms are happening now and can't quite wrap his head around why he's not like hit him in the head and drag him back to the cave is not working for him. So it was very funny for me to do that. And I'm Antonio again, who did the holoprint cover there. I talked to him and I'm like, listen, we were talking about doing another project. And I said, I really want you to do a John Buscema piece. I want you to really do something that's Ernie Chan, John Buscema, this sort of savage sort of Conan, this old throwback. But I want it to be modern in a sense that the character, sort of like Tarantino would sometimes put modern dialogue and modern music and everything into a period piece. I wanted to do that, but I wanted it to be less serious and art house and more fun along those lines. So these are some of the things that I do in these books that I could never have done anywhere else for any of the publishers that I work for. They would just be like, we can't publish that. So that's the beauty of Kickstarter, is that there's a loyal group of people who will back this and enjoy it. It's not that they're just backing it. They're in it because they get enjoyment out of it, which to me is the greatest reward. It's a symbiotic relationship because you get an immediate feedback from people, which you don't get. I mean, I used to hand in scripts and then 4 months later, I'd get a review online that was either positive or negative based on how people felt about continuity or the character or the representation. And this is so much more rewarding to me to do it this way. So I have to thank everyone that backs these books because they're so important to me and they help employ these artists. They help these projects come together. So it's a very rewarding process for me.
They definitely, this past year with all the different woes we've already had, I mean, it's really been the year of indie. I mean, there's been such an uptick in everything that's been able to do in that arena. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, there were some stores that all they were getting in was indie books because Diamond shut down.
Right.
So, they were reaching out to, various Kickstarters and other indie people in other stores that were carrying indie books to find out where they were getting them from and, get them shipped in.
I think that's great. I mean, I think that, aside from whatever, everyone's hurting, I think, but it's also important to know that you got to go out there and if you want material, it's there. And maybe you didn't pay attention to it before because you had 47 covers for a crossover event that had 87 books involved. And it's nice to say, there's an audience for this and there's a growing audience for this, whatever the format is. And you can say it's legitimate or it's delegitimate. I don't think that that's ever true. As long as you're getting comics and you're making comics, it doesn't matter how they're getting into people's hands. If they're enjoying them, we should be flooding their hands with good comics.
Yeah, if you can pick up an indie comic and just enjoy it in the moment that you're in and get some escapism out of it, and enjoy the work that was put into it. And, whether you talk about it or you just pass it on to a friend to read, it's getting out there and it's worth it for the creators and the buyers.
I agree. Definitely.
The lineup poster.
Yeah, that was we had been going over ideas, and that's Alessio Nocerino, and we were talking about ideas, and I thought, well, I'd really like to see the Usual Suspects set up, and I said, think about Usual Suspects, and it's been used in Guardians of the Galaxy, which I love, and I thought, let's just do an homage to that, and we'll make it a little cheesecakey, and we'll have these crazy aliens. Because again, this is a throwback kind of comic. It's influenced by things like women in prison movies, and I wanted to do women in prison in space. So that's what this this part of it ended up being. So that was the genesis of this cover.
Oh, well, I'll tell you, when I was 10 years old, there wasn't anything better than finding like a prison woman movie on after the Creature double feature on a Saturday. I was like, whoa, we're not playing baseball today.
No. It's funny, like you think about all those movies that were on Saturday afternoons, especially like in New York, 5 didn't used to be Fox. It just used to be a channel, and they would show Kung Fu movies and Godzilla movies and movies. And I loved that stuff. Like the Saturday morning cartoons were fun, but like once you got to the mid-afternoon, you started seeing all these movies that had, like Bruce Lee movies and all those Shaw Brother movies. I loved that stuff. And a lot of that comes out, especially in this book, and hopefully more over time, because I can't do everything all the time. Otherwise, these things would be like 200 pages long a month if I could. But so the idea for Lady Redbeard, if I hadn't mentioned it, is that I started writing this sort of 17th century pirate story, and I was like, yeah, that's cute, but what if this happened, and what if that happened? And the next thing you know, I was like, well, where could it be? The Bermuda Triangle, because back in the 70s, and I see that I think Zachary Quinto is now, because he had played Leonard Nimoy in the Star Trek movie, is now doing In Search Of, which was Leonard Nimoy's show. And I thought this is a kind of a fun thing to do, is time travel, alternate reality, Doctor Who meets, the Bermuda Triangle with a sexy redhead pirate who's really sassy and doesn't take any shit off anybody. And then just like zombie dinosaurs. I'm like, once I create an environment where anything's possible, then I feel very comfortable just doing really crazy anything. So there's a little Minara in there, because I love when he did Gulliver's Travels. And so there's some influence in that. And there's definitely a lot of heavy metal influence in these books. So if that's the kind of thing that people are into and they don't see enough of that anymore, if it's just reprints and there's nothing new, this is sort of my attempt at saying, let's do 2020, 2021 version of those great old comics that were sometimes inappropriate, sometimes crass, a little cheesecakey and sexy, but I try and change some of those elements where it's not just just the same aesthetic as it was back then. There's some other things that I throw in there to sort of help modernize some of those, or even poke fun at them, as I think you should be able to be tongue-in-cheek about some things, which used to get me in trouble all the time with the mainstream publishers. Like, we can't make fun of your characters. Like, you can't make fun of Catwoman's outfit. And I was like, but if we're doing the purple outfit, I'm like, why can't we have a little fun with it? Everyone knows the joke's there. Like, why not just say, we've already moved past it, but if you want to do a retro piece, to me, I'm like, oh, you should have some fun. And comics to me should be fun. They really should. I know they're a business, and I went in with rose-colored glasses right when I first got into comics, and it was a huge shock that it was a business and that it wasn't just like the bullpen and Stanley and everyone hanging out with the artists and the writers, and it was all a good time. But I still think that you go into making comics because you want to have fun, and you want other people to have fun consuming them.
That's well put, because my wife asked me a while back, just some crazy stuff was going on in the comic industry. And she goes, when did comics quit being fun? It's like, when we let them quit being fun.
Yeah.
That's when it stops.
I mean, I never really had the sense that I had to be so legitimized by, like, I love this, so you have to love it the way I love it. It was just kind of like, it's fun. It's not like anything else. And when people would say, well, why do you read that? I'm like, because it really isn't like anything else. And you can break it down and you can make fun of it and you can tease people. Like, I got teased when I was a kid. I was like, let's play Micronauts. And they were like, oh my God, what a loser. But there was a sense of real fun and escapism to that just, I think people are starting to see it now on a larger scale with the bigger movies and the fun that are in those movies. But it's nice to see that we keep moving forward with that sentiment. I think I want to keep pushing that forward.
That's what the backdrop is that you see behind me. I mean, this is the stuff that we grew up with as kids.
Right.
I mean, over one shoulder is all the He-Man stuff, and you'll see a Ghostbusters car and a Michael Knight car, right? The kit's down there. You'll see, on this side, I always get that backwards. You always got to figure out your space.
And it's just Star Wars over your side.
Yeah, over my left shoulder, by the way, on my left shoulder is the Star Wars stuff. So, it's just a kind of a culmination. It's just a fun space. It's a very creative space that you can kind of get in here and dive back to when you were a kid and stuff that matters. I mean, I can go back through and over where all the comics are, I can go back through and I can pull out the very first comic I got when I was a kid, and it was an indie comic. So my heart's always stayed with indies. It was a Comico comic, and it was Justice Machine 2. And it's funny, I always end up starting with the second issue for some reason. It's been a thing, but that was picking through the shelves, picking through the roller racks and stuff, all the spinner racks, and I don't know, this 7-Eleven I think had a spinner rack and the flat rack. So when you're going through the racks, that's what was on there. And I pulled out, like I said, Justice Machine 2 was the one. I remember getting that when I started in Wolverine. It was Wolverine 2, so I had to go back to 1. It was the one with the whole samurai deal on the cover. But that I wrote a story on that about the feeling of being a kid and riding your bike, because we didn't have comic shops. Our town was small. We had 7-Eleven or the hospital. Hospital was in the bigger town. And I would go to 7-Eleven and thump it, and there's the smell of Clorox and the Slurpee machine, right, and the old burnt hot dogs in the corner. Right. So all that kind of comes back when I pull that book out. I think about those times. And then my dad was in and out of the hospital a lot with a bunch of knee surgeries and back surgeries. So when I would go to the hospital with my mom, not that it was a reward to go to the hospital, but the reward after I saw Dad was swinging by the gift shop on the way out, and bam, there's Warlord right there in the DC rack. So I mean, I still have my original Warlord that I picked up from those days, and it's just fun to dive back into that time period. That's why I keep all this stuff around, just to remind me exactly what you just said.
And
especially when I was a kid, definitely.
Yeah, and now thanks to Justin, I'm really missing all my Micronauts toys.
Oh my god! I loved that. I loved that stupid comic. I loved it when they did the first one, and then when Butch Geist was doing it, and it was just kind of like, it was so much fun. And they were gangsters, like 1940s gangsters in 1 or 2 issues, and I was like, this is just crazy. Like, that's the thing that I think what draws me to it is that sense of anything can happen, and they're not held down by these rules. And I started to realize that all of a sudden there were so many rules when I was working on stuff, and I was like, why can't we do this? And like, no, there'll be no Amazons around the same time as Jonah Hex. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, why can't we have an Amazon in the Old West? We don't have to play it up. It doesn't have to be anything, but people will know it's an Amazon just by how this person acts. And they were like, no, we can't do that. And I was like, but it's so fun. Like, why wouldn't you do that? It's never been done before. You've never seen a Wild West Amazon.
She doesn't have to work in the saloon.
Right. She doesn't have to wear a tiara or be half naked. In fact, it would be more fun if she wasn't. If she was taller than every tall, skinny cowboy you've ever seen in any movie. I don't know. Just like those opportunities for things started to become thinner and thinner. And I'm a kid that grew up with What If. I loved What If. So I was always like, that kind of thing carries over. And it especially carries over into, it doesn't carry over into everything I do. Like I said, I like to do things that are very different from each other because I think my brain just does that kind of thing. I don't even know how to explain it. But for this thing, I'm like, just anything in Spicy Pulp Comics should just be able to happen. And I don't have to spend all this time worrying about continuity or explaining the physics of it. It's a Bermuda Triangle. And they have a spaceship that can fly through time and space, and it doesn't matter. So she goes from being in the 1700s to being in space prison, and it makes sense. And all the crazy characters I can throw in with it is fine. So that's the thing that draws me to stuff like this, is it's liberating to not have to worry about all that kind of structural. It's branding, and which I completely understand, and I understand why no one would ever let me write a Teen Titans comic, because it just wouldn't work for the branding. But I can do stuff with this where I feel much more satisfied with what I'm doing.
It's Lady Redbeard, the star of Time Pirates.
It's definitely a great series, and I was a big Jonah Hex fan growing up, so
yeah, I love that character.
Yeah, it's just
so much fun.
It's just always just a fun period. But this is a like you said, if you like any of those things that he just mentioned, it's just a great book to pick up. And
there's lots of it. I mean, we've been doing this, compiling a lot of. I mean, The idea was to just get a bunch of teams together and say, here, go do this, here, go do that. And then I'll try and corral everyone together in a certain time period and then put the books together. So you get with these books, you get 30 pages of main story featuring one character for 2 issues. So you don't have to have a huge investment in that. But then you also have either self-contained short stories where you have smaller chunks of serialized stuff. Like Dude Bro takes 3 chapters and then he's done. And we're going to introduce a new character in the next book. And they're all these different, and I have another character coming up, which is based on my experiences working Instacart during a pandemic, where I wanted to do this sort of 80s glam rock, heavy metal interpretation. Like it's an alternate 1980s thing where the people who are immune to a certain disease are living on the outside, almost Mad Max style, but then they start using them to try and deliver the vaccine that only lasts for a certain amount of time before you have to get another one. So that's been a lot of fun to write. And I don't know who's going to draw it because it's a lot of car driving. So it's hard to get people to draw cars. I remember when we were doing Jonah Hex and we had spoken to a couple of artists and they were like, well, we don't want to draw horses. And I was like, well, you can't do a Western without drawing horses. So
there's going to be a couple sunsets. There's going to be some cactus, some horses. Yeah, it kind of goes with it.
Yeah.
That's funny because I talked to a couple of guys that were doing Vortex 2.0 for John Carpenter's line, and they're from the UK. And the next story they're working on is a Western, and it's like the second Western they've done together. And the artist is always trying to find ways that he can kill the horses during the story because he hates drawing horses. He goes, anytime you see this horse, it's going to be in a flood in a river or a lake, so I only have to draw him from the shoulders up.
Oh, my God.
What to me, the other thing to me that's fun in this business, we're talking about, dealing with international groups and teams, is we deal with Richard Boom over there in the Netherlands. And it's always funny because Richard Boom's right now in the middle of remodeling his house. So being from there and I'm from here, sometimes we're talking about different things and he'll call something else. We got in a discussion the other day about what they call caulk versus what we call caulk, and it's just those funny kind of conversations you can have with someone in a different part and their experiences, building the same sort of things. He's having to deal with concrete and grout and all this kind of stuff, but they call it something a little different than we do. So that's to me is the other thing, is to be able to, like you said, almost time travel, but we're kind of traveling in a field of or a realm of different cultures in this business. That's always fun to me.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I really do enjoy that part of it. I mean, sometimes it doesn't work out so great because you have language issues, but for the most part, it's a lot of fun.
I'm working with another gentleman in Indonesia, and I get a lot of "Okay, sir," "Okay, EY, sir," "Okay, sir." He just
right
every time, great guy. It's just interesting how that kind of comes across sometimes.
Well, sometimes it's Google Translate, which is not always your friend.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but yeah, that's very true.
There's a very spicy print right there.
Yeah, that's more tasteful than some of the previous ones, but yeah, I like that. It's Daniel Caval. I love his line work. It's very clean, and the colorist Slamet Mugiono is one of my favorites. He's right now coloring the last of a 5-issue thing that's going to be next on Kickstarter. And again, he's in Indonesia and Caval's in Brazil. And it's just so much fun to work with people who are enthusiastic about comics in a way that's not sort of without having the expectations of, is it Marvel or is it DC? Is it legitimate or is it, is it going to propel me into stardom? Which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I like Hungry. I think it's great. But I also like the idea of making comics to make comics and not to worry about what is this going to do for my reputation or my status? Because honestly, I've had so many artists taken, introduce people to artists and they're gone and then they're working. There's an artist. It's not really entirely my fault. It's part of a process. But I just did the Standstill Kickstarter, and part of it was done a while back by an artist who is now very popular at DC, and he's a fantastic artist and a great guy. But I've seen that. I've pitched things to companies and turned around and the artist is working 2 weeks later. And I think that's great. You know, I mean, it's a little sketchy, but I'm happy for them. Always happy for the success of the people I work with, to see them fulfilling their dream or moving forward in their dream. I think that's one of the things I like most. I like hiring people. I like to see people doing what they want to do with themselves, because you don't always get that opportunity. And there's a lot of competition for things in mainstream comics, and a lot of talented people get turned away because they're not used right. I always remember one of the things that used to make me crazy was that not putting the right people on the right projects, just sort of throwing names at things, or just trying to fill publishing schedules. And I always thought, especially when Jimmy Palmiotti and I were doing Jonah Hex, we were constantly looking at the right story for the right artist, and we write stories. You know, it's J.H. Williams, so we're going to do a J.H. Williams story, or it's Eduardo Risso, so we're going to do a thing that we think Eduardo Risso would be really good at, as opposed to just saying, look, it's Eduardo Risso, just hand him any script and he'll make it work. Instead, it was like, how do we make them excited to work on it? And I do that with Spicy Pulp. I look for people that I think, and other, whatever other indie projects, I look for people that I think, A, they're going to be excited, so they're going to want to do it, because there's nothing worse than working on something you don't want to do. And I think we've all done that, regardless of what industry it is. I mean, I didn't really like working the salad bar in a chain restaurant, but I've done it because I had to do it. So when I'm in a position like this, I'm like, how can I get people to be excited to do a job that they want to do? They want to get up, they want to turn in pages, and you can see it. Like with Antonio's Kirby-esque Lady Redbeard thing, he was very excited to be doing that. It was like he hadn't had a chance to do that before. And this is Rui Civiliera and Thigo Rendau. I hope I say his name right. I think it's Thigo. And Rui is one of the animators on a Netflix show out of Brazil called Super Drag, which is about drag queens with superpowers. And it's very over the top. And a lot of moments in this, especially the thing that's on now, there's a very over the top moment where I was kind of explaining to him I wanted it to be this way, and he kept giving me pages that were much more risque. And then I was like, you know what? It's Spicy Pulp. I'm just going to run with it. And if people don't like it or they get upset by it, it's only 3 or 4 panels, and they'll either get over it or they won't. But it's how he sees it. So I'm gonna because I like to share visions with people and let them do their own thing as much as possible.
Yeah. Plus, they were pre-warned. It says spicy on the cover.
That's true. That's true. Yes. Oh, there's Dude Bro.
Dude Bro the Barbarian.
Yes, which is a sword and sorcery rom-com, which is also kind of crude and vulgar at times, obviously, based on that monster. But this is a lot of fun. I mean, this is the one where I said, can we just do John Buscema, Cyber Sword of Conan? So there's a lot of tropes in there I have fun with, and a lot of dynamics between the hero and the heroine, as we could see her there with the sword. And it also answers the age-old question of what's the difference between a wizard and a sorcerer, and about how a wizard's a sorcerer's version of a creepy uncle. And there's a lot of sex cult stuff in it, which I thought was really funny, because you would always, in those old Conan stories, like you'd be brushing up against the idea that this wizard or sorcerer was running a sex cult with all these women flaunting around all the time. So I thought, let's just have some fun with that, and interdimensional octopus monsters like Lovecraft. And Antonio obviously delivered, and Sean Forney's colorist on this one as well. And they just do great work. And we're going to be collaborating, all 3 of us, on the next, what replaces this story is something called Strawberry Milk, which is kind of like Tank Girl meets Lobo, which is, it's
I'm
really
sold.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's goofy.
A little earlier you said 80s, but a little different. I'm like, well, you had me at 80s.
This is Mecha Monroe, which is an American meets Indonesian manga sort of. I call it the dessert. Like after you're like, usually either it's Road Witch or Lady Redbeard is like the meat of the book, and then you have these sort of other things that are like I don't even know how you explain it, but this is definitely the dessert of the comic, where it's sort of light anime manga style, and we really see a lot of that in this particular issue, because she gets 20 pages instead of her usual 10, because there's a lot of backstory and character development that happens in this one, and a lot of silly stuff.
Well, what I liked about it overall was the fact that it is definitely tied back in with the old pulps of the 40s and 50s, where you had all these different sections of stories all as a collective, right? So that's very much tied in with this, and I have a whole stack of them back there. 1943, 45, 50s, all the way up through the Magnus of the 60s, which always had they'd already broken off their own story, but that's still a throwback to that whole era of being able to have a collective of a story. And this pegs it through and through.
Oh yeah, kind of like the old ECs were.
Hmm.
Where you get multiple stories and like really heavy on the storytelling, opposed to just letting the art tell the entire story like they like to do now at a couple of companies that have initials.
It's again, it's supposed to be fun, but it's also like you're getting 60 something pages.
Oh yeah.
If I could do 80 pages, I would. Logistically, it's hard, but I mean, the more the merrier. I have more material than I have resources to get that material out there. So it is what it is. So I have trades, and there's the single issue crowd, and then there's the trade crowd, and it's easier for me to do trades because it's a lot less bagging, boarding, packing, and you also get, like, with these two trades, you'll get the complete Road Witch story and the complete Lady Redbeard story along with the other stuff, all in one sitting. So I think for me that's nice. And Lady Redbeard was the first character I led with, and then I went to Road Witch, which is inspired by, and I see this all the time, especially now that I'm driving around doing Instacart in upstate New York. You notice how on highways all across America there are crosses and flowers where people have perished. And I would drive past them, and I would be like, well, what if there was like a patron saint of people who had died alongside the road? Or what if there was someone you could go to instead of having these memorials that recognize motorcycle crashes or car accidents? And I thought of this character that you would go there and you would say something terrible happened to the person that died here, and I will call upon the spirit of the Road Witch, and she'll come, and she's obligated to do something about it, or to help the person that's calling upon her, even if it has nothing to do with the car accident. And so I thought that's kind of an interesting idea, and to have this sort of character that started out when America wasn't even called America, when there were Puritans and they were burning witches in Salem, and a lot of times they were just blaming women for stuff that had nothing to do with them. It was jealous other wives, and the idea was that this girl who was falsely accused was cursed by a witch that she killed, and the witch attached herself to her. So the two of them were sort of firestorm symbiotic with each other throughout time. So I created an environment where I could tell any kind of story through as a period piece. So while the first story that's in issue 3 and 4 is a modern piece, I started writing a piece where she teams up. H.P. Lovecraft is the one who goes to the side of the road to summon her to help him with something, which is going to be a lot of fun. I've written 90% of that. So that was the second character that came out of this. So you get, and then we went back to, I was going to do that, the next Road Witch thing, and the artist who had done Road Witch with me was suddenly busy. And that's what happens with indie comics. You got to kind of be really super flexible and stay on your toes. So I immediately started looking for someone, and I didn't even really have the next Lady Redbeard in mind, but I saw an artist, the artist inspired me, and I said, well, what if I did this? And then that's how we're at issue 5 now, with Lady Redbeard taking over again for 2 issues. So, I mean, it's a lot of fun doing it that way. It would make people crazy, but I always hated having to write 6-month overviews. What would happen in a comic for 6 or 8 months from now, that it's so nice to just be like, this is what happens. And I don't have to worry about going back and doing something that like maybe I'm over in 8 months and don't have the same enthusiasm for.
Yeah. Plus with the trades, you know, quite honestly, for I don't know how many years now, 65% of the market's been all trades, because a lot of people that love comics, but you know, can't pick them up all the time. They just want to go into a shop, or you know, buy something online that's like a complete story, or at least a complete story arc. Right. You know, just so they can sit down and you know, dive into something to distract them from, you know, real world crap, because real world crap really sucks.
I'm not going to disagree. No, I get it.
Just saying.
There's small installments too. I mean, 22 pages. I tried to kickstart 22 pages, and I was just like, this is crazy. Like, who's going to want to do this? You know, you got to give people more material.
Oh,
especially in the age of more material. Everything is more material. When you go in a subscription service now, whether it's Disney Plus or it's Hulu or whatever, you have a vast library of material that you can get lost in. And to say, well, now I want you to read 22 pages in 5 minutes and then wait 30, 35 days to get the next one. I lose interest in a series that's all there sometimes. You know, I stop watching stuff. I'm like, I don't really feel like watching that. So,
and with the indie market, where, you know, even if you're bouncing back and forth between Indiegogo and Kickstarter, you can only get so many books a year out.
Right.
You know, so how soon are they going to lose interest, you know, with, you know, a 22 or 24 page book, and then they got to wait like, you know, 2 or 3 months for the next issue, where, you know, you get them 60 pages. They might not sit down and read it like all in one lump, you know. Right. They'll read some, and then they'll go and do stuff, and they'll come back to it. And I like trades for certain things more. Like, I like all my game and stuff in like trades, and of course I prefer the hardcover trades. So, you know, I can put them up on a bookshelf, and they're right there. I do have tons and tons of soft covers, but then I have to stack them sideways, and the OCD in me goes a little crazy for a while. And then I just kind of like turn like this and look at the TV and go, oh yeah, the game's on. Never mind.
No, I totally get it. I mean, I wish I could do more hardcovers. At some point, I would like to do that with these, especially like I'd like to do omnibuses and just make them big, really big, heavy door stoppers. Just because I think it's nice. I think it's something that makes it more valuable to people. It's such an investment. I always look at investments in things, and if they're going to invest their time and money in me, I need to give them something that they're not getting elsewhere. So that's always important.
Yeah, like Jeff Smith did when he released his Big Fat Bone.
Yeah.
That didn't sound right.
No, but I understand what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying. Well, so nobody thinks I'm crazy. This Big Fat Bone.
Yeah. It's like an old school phone book.
Oh, yeah.
We're phone books.
Phone books, kids, are where we used to have to look up numbers.
That thing can be used as a weapon these days.
Yeah. That's my favorite thing about buying an omnibus. It's loaded with hours of reading, and it is ideal for home defense.
There you go. It's a package deal. Man, you know, discussions and disputes were settled with Tonka trucks when we were growing up, right? You get a quick Tonka truck to the head, and that was the end of that discussion. You were not doing.
Oh, man. My friend's little brother, he was the two-face of the neighborhood. He'd be like smiling, sweet little boy. Couple would be walking down the end to go to the train tracks to, you know, just go for a walk in the woods, going, you know, cutting down to their part of town or whatever. And he'd walk by him, smile, hi. And, you know, the girlfriend would pat him on the head. Hi, you're a nice little boy. And as soon as they walked a foot beyond him, he would spin around with his Tonka dump truck and whack him in the small of the back and run. That's right, Bobby Marshall. I'm talking about you. He's never going to watch this. I don't care.
Bobby Marshall's not watching this.
Well, he'll never be able to run for office now. That's for sure, because the story's out. So he's done. He's done. He's done in politics.
Oh yeah. And now we've got some magnets. We get some nice pins.
Some acrylic pins. I always trying to do different things. I'm trying to see, whatever. I mean, I don't usually do merchandise, but I started seeing some quality stuff, and I was like, oh, this might be fun. So, I mean, I like them, but I don't know.
People love cool swag. You always got to have something cool and interesting and inviting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, my workstation is getting filled up with stickers from all kinds of indie books. Well, and a Hulk. I've got a Hulk on there, and everything else is from. I just threw like 4 more stickers on there from a friend's project that they were in a lawsuit with AMC because they were the Toking Dead. Because they realized
they had multiple lawsuits, right? I mean,
oh yeah, they realized that the zombies wouldn't want to eat your brains if you got them stoned. But then once you ran out of weed, you were in trouble. So now they had to switch it to Toking with the Dead, but back issues so people can get the
these are all spot gloss covers that weren't available before. The one in the water is John Brolia, artist, Revin, and then Roy, who's doing the Lady Redbeard story now, did the one for 3. Thomas Blake did issue 4, the Evil Knievel variant.
Oh, and I like that.
I realized there weren't as many people as I had hoped who would understand the significance of an Evil Knievel variant. But
are you kidding? I still have my stunt cycle. Somewhere, one of these boxes, it's in there somewhere. I've got the original, and my LCS gifted me one of the anniversary ones from like a few years back.
Nice.
Did you watch the whole Evil Knievel? What's the guy's name from X Games and stuff that just did the record breaking of all the different Evil Knievel stunts?
I did not see that.
It was, and he did it like all. The crazy thing was he did it all in. I don't think it was name in a minute, but he did it all in one day, like jump after jump after jump, and it was incredible. I mean, like I said, he was a big X Games guy for a while. A bunch of the kind that would do the flip in the air with the dirt bike, and the kind that throws the bike forward, does the Superman right, and grabs the fender pull. When do you first feel you want to do that?
I know.
When you want to separate from the bike in midair, and then. I was at a deal back home, and we watched an event, and they were doing all these stunts and everything, and doing just what we're talking about. And the guy had just done the Superman over the deal. He saw somebody in the crowd he wanted to talk to. I guess he was trying to impress a girl, so to come talk to her, and he's probably 19 or 20, and he flat-footed up the bleachers, and I'm talking like stadium-style chairs. So they're only that wide. He flat foot balanced and walked up the seats, the top of the seats, like we walk up. He was going up the seats. I'm like, that's just crazy, ridiculous. About one step, and that's an ankle snap, and his career's done.
Right.
But I guess to go talk with impress this girl.
19. Like,
it's immense.
You can't break your 19.
There was a girl.
It has to be.
That's all you have to say.
That story right there sets itself. There was another guy.
That's how humanity has lasted as long as it has.
Pretty much. That could be a whole comic series of itself. There was a girl, right? So there was another instance where another dirt bike kind of thing where we do a bunch of grand openings for some stores, and we had hired the world indoor champion, and his shows were phenomenal. But his practice runs were what you had to watch, because that's when he was testing himself and playing around with the crowds, just doing fun things. And then he was such a kid that the jumpy castle's off to the side, and between shows, he would go hang out in the jumpy castle.
Mm.
He's doing stuff that amazes and defies gravity, and he's going to go hang out with the 7-year-olds in the jumpy castle. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I got to see that thing you were talking about, though.
Yeah, I'll look up the name and I'll send it to you. But it was he, like I said, he did. And the crazy thing was he's doing it. And they were older school bikes. They were more of, because a lot of people don't realize that aren't fans or kept up with all stuff that he did. Was, man, that's an old school full Harley. That's weight. That's not just these gas bikes that are
carbon. It's not a carbon frame.
Yeah, I mean, these things were
weighs 2 ounces.
Right, these things were a horse. I mean, they were, and he's doing all this stuff with them, and I think his name in a minute, it bugs me. But he's doing it with similar style bikes. He had like 3 different jump setups. And the thing was, I thought he was going to go from bike to bike, but the other 2 were just in case he just smashed one. He just had another one right there. But he did the jump over it was all in Vegas. He did the jump over the water stuff that he did. Right. But the only thing that kind of got me was, and I have to go back and look at it again, I think he did it the width ways. He didn't do the whole long jump. Okay. So to me, that one didn't count. I was kind of like, You didn't do the full Evel Knievel thing, right? You didn't go for it, and he just went one after another. I mean, it was insane. I'll look it up and send it to you.
Cool, do that. Thank you.
Look, if he didn't try to jump the Grand Canyon, he was just playing.
He's a coward.
Yeah, if he didn't do the rocket straight into the cliff, I mean that's what is that?
Well, how do you remember that? I go, because I had all the toys.
Yeah, there was a guy who, God, where was it? I want to say was it Utah or Montana? Anyway, the kind of roadrunner scenery that we're used to, right? Mm-hmm. If you've ever looked up,
it's not probably Utah.
Yeah,
roadrunner scenery is probably Utah or Arizona.
It's all and there was I'll think of it in a minute. It's there's another series that you can do that talks about how people die in some sort of really stupid way, doing something really chaos. And there's it's the Darwin Awards. If you look,
yeah,
those are great. Now there's one of them where a guy literally took the jet packs, the actual packs they put on the bigger planes for the Army to get the bigger cargo off the ground, the extra boost. He took a boost, stuck it on the top of his car, right? And it's like this Monte Carlo kind of really weighted car. Took off across the desert to see how fast he could go. Hits the button, right, to juice up the jet to get it to go. And it literally picks the car up off the ground, so he loses all steering capabilities. And the regular desert police that run around the highway find him smoldering, smashed against a cliff, and they had to ID him off his fingernails. I mean, there was nothing left.
Wile E. Coyote move.
Yeah, it was the grease spot. But that's what kind of reminisces me about these dirt bike kind of adventures, or I mean, but yeah, I'll have to look both of those up. But I'll definitely do the God, and Kasana. Maybe I have to look up his name. He's a famous X bike guy that did all the announcements and was kind of like the ringleader for a long time and did everything for that series.
To check that out.
He didn't jump the shark like the Fonz, I'm not impressed.
We did stuff.
You jumped the fountain, but you did it the short way, and you didn't go over the center of the fountain. Come on.
I was always more into cars than bikes when I was growing up, and I built race cars all my life, and I tell my kids, I was like, look, there's stuff that we did that if we'd have gotten caught, we'd have went to jail, and if we screwed up, we'd have gotten killed. I mean, I've done it, right? I've ridden at a high rate of speed on the front end of a car. The whole scene that's in. That's in there.
In high school, I died from doing that car surfing thing.
Yeah, we all and that's so that whole scene in Death Proof, right? Where she's like riding on the hood of the car, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, well, yeah, we did that stuff." Growing up, I look back at it now, I'm going, "Oh my god, what was I thinking?"
Yeah.
And I was in a major car wreck in 2007 that broke my neck, and I'm a lot more cautious after that event than before.
That's crazy. Why would you be?
Yeah, I asked the doctor, I said, look, man, what are my odd changes now? Like, I'll walk across beams and barns and stuff and not think anything of it. And I work high-rise stuff, so I'm, hundreds of feet in the air. I said, I haven't ridden a horse since I've broken my neck. So what are my odds? And he's like, I really can't tell you. So, and I did. I finally a couple of years ago got back on the horse, as they say, and tried out more of my, back to my my Jonah Hex cowboy roots, I guess. A lot of times you'll see me in a cowboy hat, but you just have to do it, man. I just had to get back in the saddle and throw some more cliches at it. But that was
I haven't ridden a horse in years and years.
And then breathe a big sigh of relief once you get off the horse.
Yeah, like I lived through that. That was a moment. I was, you don't think about it when you're younger, but man, the things that happen to you, or those kind of events that stick with you, like this whole scene that I looked through when I was looking at the book. I mean, that really flashed me back to that event back in 2007. That whole car situation. But here I am. I must be around for a reason, right?
Yep.
Definitely. Both of us. All of us.
Yeah, they want me making comics, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what.
We're like three musketeers of beaten death, right? Knock on wood.
Really?
For now.
What happened to those three guys? They were on the air just the other day, and they're all gone.
Final destination.
They said they were going to Tijuana for the weekend.
Yeah, what happened there? Yeah.
You get some pages from...
Yeah, that's the Road Witch from 3, Spicy Pulp 3 and 4, because that one's from 4, and more Dude Bro from 4 and 3, which is this piece here is inspired by Ernie Chan, and then that piece was also inspired from Savage Sword, the classic tied to a cross or a stake or an X or whatever,
or anything, yeah.
Yeah, just tied to stuff. Yeah, big old buzzard there, like a cartoon buzzard. I love it.
Every time I see a buzzard, all I can hear is Mortimer Sturd's voice from the when he did the voiceover for the baby buzzard. Nope, don't wanna.
Yeah, I like the throwback they did a while back that they're going back to our childhood, right? And they're saying that a coyote can outrun a roadrunner. So
right.
Their whole childhood was false.
Right.
All these things were thought to believe as a child.
Well,
and I see the little warlord in there. I wanted the white hair to be the warlord thing. It's in the Fred Flintstone pants, loincloth, which I thought was fun too. So it's like little things like that. It's like the stupid things that go through my head is like, what if Warlord, Fred Flintstone, Conan, and all these other things were in a romantic comedy sword and sorcery thing. But it's not as romantic as it's not a traditional romance, I would say. It's very untraditional. But they're fun. They're fun characters, and they're fun to put in situations, and it's fun to write things that you don't get to see. Like, I'm like, I would love to see this, and I look for it, and I don't see it. So I'm like, maybe I'll just write it and see if it's, as entertaining to me or as to other people as it is to me. But so far it has been. It's been kind of fun to see how many people gravitate towards it. And this campaign is doing really well.
I was talking with another young creator just the other day about, we work with a lot of just everybody, all different stages in their career. And he was talking about how much fun it is for him that he's starting to get the reviews in now. And, to see his book printed, for one thing, was such
that's always huge when that happens.
Yeah, that's such a huge, and I said, well, relish in this moment, always remember this part of it. And then he starts messaging me about, talking to me about all the different reviews that he's got coming in. And it just, each one just kind of builds his enthusiasm. And it's so nice to be there with him in that moment to watch him be successful. And that's where we have a lot of fun. We love seeing people be successful. That's the bottom line. And to be a part of, everything going on with him and be a part of everything going on with you. And that's just a great feeling for us to see all those things come together. But yeah, it's just those different moments that you can pick apart in your career. They're just something definitely to memories to take with you. And we just had a big talk about that the other day about memories about, what are you going to do at the end of everything, right? Do you want to sit around with memories, or do you want to talk about all the stuff you got sitting on shelves and on the wall, or share the stories, right? And that's to me what this collection is, right? You're sharing all these stories of all these things and all these different experiences and fun things you'd like to see. And that's the big draw to this book for me, is all the collection of the stories.
I just want to keep moving forward. I want to keep challenging myself and keep saying that, not to be afraid. I mean, there's a lot of, I talk to people. For years and years, no matter where I am, whether I'm in a hostel in Alaska or whether I'm in a coffee house in New York, it's always people saying, I have this idea, I'm going to do this thing. And I'm always like, well, you got to do it. And like you just got to hold your breath and jump out of the plane, or you have to just say, I'm going to fail, but at least I'm trying it. And then I know that I failed, but after trying it, instead of failing to do anything.
Oh, that's awesome advice. But my grandfather used to say, do it. And if you do it wrong, just do something. Just
Right.
have that, get out there and do it. And what was that movie that I was talking about, what are you going to say at the end of it? When they ask you to get in the car, right? This is a scene and it's actually, did you get in the car? Did you go for the adventure, or did you hang back? It's like, it's just too dangerous. I don't want to mess with it. I love that mentality, man. That's what I said when I told you the story about what my wife did with this business, with NSC and the whole birth of all that. She said, well, just do it. Just build a better mousetrap, and I love her advice in doing it, because here we are 3 years later, and
Right.
We're getting to do all these fun things with fun people and be a part of it and meet people all across the world. And, what if I wouldn't have, right? What if I'd have just kind of said, nah, we're just going to let other people do that, and we'll just kind of watch on the sidelines. But no, we're getting a chance, just like we are tonight, having a lot of fun, talking about experiences, sharing this great book. It's just a good time.
I remember that scene in the Johnny Cash biopic with Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon, when he goes and he's singing that gospel hymn, and he's like, well, you're going to sing this song, or you're going to sing something that people are going to remember you're Johnny Cash? Like you can just do this song and sing it the way you want to sing it, or you can be Johnny Cash. And I always think everyone should be Johnny Cash. Like they should just, whoever that is in them. And it's hard because it's scary. And I know people fear failure more than they fear success, which is interesting to me, because there's a fine line in there. Like there are people who fail and then they sort of disappear. And there are people who succeed and then they disappear because they hold on to their success and think it's more valuable than the next success they're going to have. Like that's the pinnacle of what they achieve. And I'm always like, let's just keep going. Let's just see what happens next, because at some point the clock's going to run out and you're not going to make anything else, and you're not going to have anything else for people to enjoy or to read or listen to or whatever. And for me, I'm just like, I can't let people say to me, I can't do it, because they can't do it. And then that happens a lot. Why do you want to move? Why do you want to move to Washington? It rains there. It's too mossy. Like why do you want to move to the South? And I think that people spend more time is exacerbating why you can't do something, instead of just saying, go for it. Good luck to you. And I hope you can, I hope everything works out. So that's the attitude that I've had for quite a while, is just go do it. If you fail, you fail. I mean, everyone fails. It happens all the time. But if you don't do it, you'll never succeed either way. So, I don't know.
Yeah. Why do you want to move to Texas? Well, I like tacos and barbecue.
Oh, but it's hot and there's tornadoes and the people are mean. How do you know if you're going to fit in there? Like everyone tells you something about someplace or something.
Because I got a gun.
Yeah.
I love the episode when Sheldon talks about he's trying to find the safest place in America to live.
Oh, yeah.
And he's going, this has, like you said, exactly, this has hurricanes and this has tornadoes and this has this and the crime rate's this here. And then he finally finds the safest city in the world or the safest city in the United States to go to. So you're right. There's people are going to find something in everything. And the crazy thing too, the sad thing about in this business is when you start becoming successful at something, the rocks that get thrown out there.
Oh, sure.
And I don't want to harp on that, but I mean, when you start to do something that is unique or successful, there is all those other people that are on the sidelines that are saying, like you're talking about, oh, it's not safe to do that. It's too humid there. Why would you do that? It's the anti what ifs, right? They don't want to do anything. They want to just peel apart or peel away from somebody else. And I would much rather boost somebody up and give props and give, then be that person.
And there's a difference between being competitive and being a jerk, because like a lot of times competitive to some people means that the other person has to have no success because that's taking away from you. But that's not really what it is. I tell my daughter all the time, like, don't worry about what people think of your thing. If you can analyze it and if you think there's validity to it, then take away from that. But don't just sit there and go, someone's saying something bad about me, or they don't like my work, or they don't like my drawings or whatever, and say I shouldn't do it anymore. Because there's a lot of stuff in the world that I don't like that many people like and makes lots of money. So I can't really get down on people about that. I mean, it's easy to do when you're young and angry. I was a young and angry writer, getting mad at editors I didn't know, and I'm a genius. Why isn't anybody recognizing me? And I've seen it over and over again. But the reality is you just have to keep working at it, and you can always get better. And sometimes when people trash you, there's a reason for it, and you got to be able to discern where the validity in the trashing is and when it's just them trying to do something for themselves based on that. So
that is very solid advice. That's, you know, and you got to tell your daughter she definitely has a career in graphic design from that picture you showed me the other day with the I was like, that's awesome. You know, at that age to be able to do that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah, she jumped on the computer that we're talking on now. She's like, hang on, let me show you something. And she went to the code and she changed the code, and I'm like, all right.
They have such, you know, the things that they can do now versus, you know, the stuff that we had at our fingertips at that age, right? I mean, it's just amazing. But no, that's very solid advice, Justin. That's I can't say that enough about, you know, there is healthy competition. And there's also what I like about what we're doing, everything with the road show is, you know, we're gathering everybody together, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's much more. It's a collective. We're saying, okay, let's all get together and let's all share stories, share what books we have out there, you know, and just build that up together as a team, right? It's much more positive to me to be able to get everybody together and talk well about each other and do these things and have these groups and get the word out, right? And grow the audiences. And that's why we went ahead and put together the group and, you know, reached out to people like Will that does a great show and has
thank you, Will.
And it's
thank you.
It's great to be able to get together.
I loved your hex run.
Thank you for that.
Oh yeah, well, I told him that the other day right off. You know, I was like, "Oh man, yeah, I'm a Hex fan. Let's just get that out of the way." You know, I'll do my fandom moment for a second. I'll get that out of the way.
I was lucky. I worked with a lot of amazing people, a lot of amazing editors, writers. I mean, artists, and working with Jimmy, and you know, and being able to piggyback on Fleischer and Albano, and that was just. It was just a great thing that just kind of happened. And so I'm very happy.
Right time.
Yeah. And again, it was one of those things I say, put the right people on the right project instead of just slapping names together and saying, well, obviously if we put this person and this person together, it's going to sell 100,000 copies. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm very happy to have had that experience.
Well, each experience, like you said, you learn something. I mean, I learn something every day.
Yeah.
And to be able to take those experiences, good, bad, or other, and just get better each time is you know, a very positive attitude is what we try to do, you know, and be able to share those things and be able, like you said, get together and what we're talking about now. And hopefully there's a young artist or young creator out there that's just getting into this business that, you know, will learn from these discussions and be able to kind of, you know, find his place or her place in the world by doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's also an obligation to be a resource because I've definitely been around people who have been in the game a long time, and they're not a resource to you. They're not, because, you know, they don't want, and I get it. You don't want to surrender whatever you have, but I don't ever look at it like that. I remember there were some arguments about people saying, well, why is this superstar doing a Kickstarter who's already selling X amount of books at a mainstream publisher? And I'm just like, that helps everyone, because all of a sudden they're looking at it like they don't have to go to mainstream publisher to get books that they like. And here's a platform where they can be as much of a reader or fan or fanatic or whatever level of participation they want to have in the industry that doesn't require them to do the same sort of archaic system of consumerism. And I think that's great. So anybody that brings more and more attention to different platforms, anything that gets more comics made and more comics into people's hands as readers, I'm not going to have a problem with that.
Yeah, one word, berserker. And in typical fashion, what's there, like 32 covers coming out?
I honestly, because I have no investment in those things, I don't pay attention to them anymore. So any of whatever is happening outside of what I'm doing or what I see in the indie market, or obviously there's a core group of people that I know in Kickstarter, I don't really focus on that stuff. So I have no idea what most of those things are or what's happening. And people are always like screaming about something happening in some fandom. And my daughter was the one that pointed it out to me. I guess I've been kind of head up my ass about it, but she's always talked about toxic fandoms. And she's like, well, I like this. And we talk about that, but there's toxic parties. And I'm always like, I never really thought about it. Like, I never really it's not who I am to be like, let's be toxic about something. I mean, I may not like something. I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan ever. And I appreciate the fact that millions and millions of people love every little minutia about Star Wars. And I might like one or two things about it, but I'm not going to sit here all day long and tell you that you shouldn't love what you love. So whenever people are like, well, how do you feel about this? I'm like, honestly, first of all, the most brutal thing I can say is it doesn't make me any money. So like, I'm not going to waste energy worrying about what money is being made by some corporation or multinational conglomerate when I'm just saying, I just want to make comics and get them out there to people. So I think on the one hand, that probably hurts me, I guess, in some regard, but in the other regard, I'm like, we just got to watch out for, what's important to us and to myself and to the people that support me are the number one people that I like. If they're mad, then I want to find out why they're mad and fix it. But if they're mad about something else that has nothing to do with me, then that's fine. That's cool, I guess.
Oh yeah. I had a long discussion with my son the other day about talking about, and he's the one that brought it up. I mean, he's at that age, right? That 21, 22-year-old age where they want to really get engaged with politics and religion and money. Mm-hmm. And that's not me, So, but you get engaged with these conversations with your kids, and he was talking about all this kind of stuff, and he invests in everything. He was talking about everything with SpaceX, and how now, Elon Musk has made that other $145 million, and now he's bumped Gates down, and now he's number 2, and the guy that did Amazon's number 1. And we had that little bit of a discussion. So, well, yeah, it's that. But I said, what if his spaceship would have blown off the pad? He wouldn't have got the 145. He wouldn't be up there. He would be wiped out. I said, because they did have errors, they did have problems, they did blow some rockets up, and
God forbid some people got killed, and then all of a sudden the perception would be, oh, we can't trust this, or and then stock starts to plummet, and everything is so fragile, especially when you get to those levels.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that's what we talked about that. And we talked about, I do a lot of work in the nuke industry and stuff, and the whole nuclear renaissance. And they talked about, how we were talking about how scared people were of nuclear in the 70s, right? With everything that happened with Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island, and how the media came in and really pushed the mark on that. But nobody talks about that. It's really just basically superheating water and making a steam plant. That never makes the news. Yeah. When something, when Hiroshima, they talk about that in nuclear respects, and all these people picketing about, no more nukes, no more. Well, when you build a nuke plant, that's not military grade nuke, right? We're not building bombs. We're superheating water. I've had to point that out to people all the time when, I'm coaching my kid's baseball game or something, like, right. Oh, nuke plant, huh? Well, you're over there making arms. No, right. We're not having anything to do with that. We're providing energy. So, like you said,
it's funny because that's part of, like, with the standstill, that's a major thing, because I live by Indian Point. So, I mean, that's literally, it takes me no time to drive there. And I've been researching it, and they want to shut it down, or they want to change it, and they do those marches and stuff. And it is superheating water, and it isn't the same exact thing. But it's interesting to me when you think about, because I was researching for the story, how many nuclear power plants there are on the planet. Yep. And just like how many airplanes are up in the sky, how many fatal crashes there are is a small percentage of what they sensationalize, just like everything else. I mean, whatever sells papers or whatever puts eyeballs on the TV.
There's something you can go into. They call it human performance, and you talk about error traps, and you talk about and this is all nuclear theory stuff, but you can always talk about its behaviors. So you talk about hey, the odds are if you do this repetitive thing so many times, this number of errors will happen.
Right.
And it's the errors that okay, you don't want your pilot to be that guy. You don't want your doctor to be that guy. You don't want the person prescribing your medicine or delivering your child to be that guy. Right. That's when it really sinks in. That's kind of like, and I don't think people sometimes realize too much about the world around them until it affects them like this. And I don't want to dwell on it, but like I compare COVID to cancer, right? If it doesn't affect you or you haven't had somebody die from it, you're like, oh, well, it's just this kind of this super flu thing, right? But if you have like myself and other people involved, people watching, people that that have died from it, family members and friends and stuff, or it becomes a real thing, and like we talked about, earlier about going through the airports at LAX and Atlanta, it's ridiculous right now. Like what's going on here versus what's going on in South Carolina. Like here in Washington, everything's locked down. You can't go eat anywhere. You can't go. You can't have gatherings. You can't do this, that, and the other. But on the East Coast, it's a party. Hot tubs are open and the pool's open and restaurants are open, and we're so far apart in that. And that's some of the other debates that talks I have with my kids. About just what's going on, and that's where you get these toxic environments, right? You start seeing all this hate stuff about things. But
I mean, that's a universal thing is that people say it's not happening to me, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
I mean, no matter what topic you can pick throughout history.
Yep.
You can say, something that's happening in another country, a genocide. Oh, that's their problem,
Yeah.
And then when it gets smaller and smaller and it's the town over or it's the block over, then people start to panic. And by that point, it's too late, which is, I mean, again, not to dwell on this stuff, but it's kind of like that's story fuel for me. That's like drama. That's stuff that I'm like.
There's a county in Colorado, it was just a couple counties over from where we were living, that there was citizens on the border with guns and said, if you don't have any family here or don't live here, you have no business coming into our county, period. Right. And that's pretty much that's back to what's that movie with the first it was a baseball bat and then it was a sawed off log, and what's the Walking Tall. Yeah, Walking Tall mentality, right? This is my town and you're not coming in it for any reason.
It's funny, years and years ago, early 90s, and I had been driving from Seattle heading back to Colorado, but I stopped in, I think it was either Montana or Wyoming, and it was this, pulled into this small town, and this is going to sound so weird, but it was like strangers, outsiders, or even to the point where I used to make a joke. I'm like, you're white, but you're not the right kind of white. And because you have different views about things, or you're like, I had a mohawk and I was like, whatever, I was a kid. And it's like people develop these sort of tribal isolationist things, which again is great story fodder. It's great material that has been used to great effect in things like Walking Dead. And it's unfortunate. It's fun to do it as fiction because you're sort of picking apart things and human psychology. I like to do that when I'm, not everything is escapist fun, but sometimes I like to write things where I'm deconstructing human psychology, and it's just crazy at this point. I'm at a point, and especially after the last several years, I'm like, I just really would like to see people come together. I would like to see a gathering of like-minded. You don't necessarily have to all agree with each other, and I definitely have friends I agree with and friends I don't agree with at all, but I don't say I can't be friends with you because I disagree with you. I can only say I just wish you would see things a different way, or but at the end of the day, the idea is that, especially in a situation where you're supposed to be united, you need to step back and say, let's take a look at our differences and try and figure out who's stoking the fires of what is causing us to have a rift. It's like when you were like a kid and like you'd have a best friend and then you'd have a new best friend and they would stoke the fire between to see who was going to be the one that was really your best friend. To be doing that, to see that happen on such a large scale, I'm not as young as I would like to be. It's kind of weird, and it's kind of like, no, we shouldn't do that. And like, I think that people in a position to say it doesn't have to be that way should be the ones stepping up and saying, let's be more mature.
You wish they would, because like I said earlier, just the differences in how everybody's handling this situation,
right,
is so far apart right now. It's scary. And my mind went into comic mode when I was getting off one of the planes, because of course, and luck of the draw, I end up with the guy, right? I get in with Chinstrap guy is the one sitting next to me, because he hadn't bought a new mask in 8 months, and it's sagged. Chinstrap guys, it's sagged down, right? So all it's doing is covering their chin, and their mouth and the nose is all exposed. I'm like, that is all kind of interconnected, right? That doesn't do anything for anybody. That doesn't help anybody. So anyway, I got Chinstrap guy sitting beside me on the plane, and the stewardess came by several times and told him, well, when we go to deplane, and I think I was in Seattle, and I'm trading planes around, I've got to get on I got a short layover, so I got to try to get to the next plane. So I jump up, grab the overhead, grab my bag down, and thank God I stood up, because at that point, Chinstrap guy coughs, and when he coughs, I feel the heat on my elbow. So immediately my mind starts racing around. I paint the visual, and in the comic side of me, you just feel the skin just peel off your bone, with this toxic breath,
right?
So I get back in the airport and I just bathe that whole right side with sanitizer, and then I see the guy walking through the airport with the full face shield like you'd see in a plant somewhere, with HEPA filters on the side, And I'm like, I just got through dealing with Chinstrap guy, and here's a guy that could like fly with a space shuttle, right? I mean, it's so far apart from each other now, and it's just it's its own comic relief. I mean, just to survive the travel right now, and if it wouldn't have been for having to go check on my dad, and if it wasn't for family and these funerals, I would have not gone out and ventured forth. But it's almost like you said, it's a bunch of material that you could deconstruct and talk about, and I could talk offline. There may be a story there, because I just keep going back to these images in my mind of how far removed we are from this way we should be versus how we're all treating each other right now. It's just not good times.
No. Well, I'm hopeful that we're gonna start making inroads to all that stuff, and I have to remain hopeful, because I mean I'm a pessimist and cynical at nature, but I can't do that anymore. I got to worry about we worry about the future, we worry about our kids, we worry about the planet, and so I'm hoping that things are going to get better, and I think they are.
It's a page turner. I hope the page is turned and we're in a new chapter, and we're in a new book, and we can go back and say, remember when, right? That was a past tense thing. So yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Which is why I write tongue-in-cheek stories about Lady Redbeard, who really doesn't have a beard, and so I don't know. It's fun stuff, and I hope that brings some release and some entertainment to people that are kind of tired of everything else, regardless of whether it's the world or comics in general, or just want some kind of relief from the seriousness of everything.
Well, I got a chance to read this amongst all what I just told you. So it was a great time for me to be able to kind of decompress from that and kind of get into this book and read the different, went through the series with them. So yeah, it was definitely good timing for that.
I had a lot of fun. I mean, there's some crazy stuff that happens in that story. I was like trying to think of things like you would never see, and you would never see a personal zeitgeist unit or a pozo trying to rehabilitate prisoners who have committed time crimes. But it's been fun. It's been fun to just sort of turn the side of the brain that we were just occupying off and just say, let's just do something zany and crazy and sexy and fun. And I was trying to explain, I had done a podcast before this, and I was discussing the fact that she's naked for like 25 pages out of 30. and how that's not gratuitous or not part of the actual story, because it absolutely is. But I thought it'd be fun, and we were discussing how Den from Heavy Metal is naked all the time. So I'm like, it's okay for you to, if it's funny and you do it the right way, then it's not offensive or gross or just done just to put seats, put asses in the seats, which is fun for me. I like to do little puzzle things like that when I work on stuff, is to come up with ways to circumvent stereotypes. So hopefully that works. Hopefully that comes off that way. So
well, that's the one that I've got. I know one of the guys that had to do with Heavy Metal, and that was all created, and I got to find it. I feel like Will right now. It's in a box renter somewhere, and I got to get it out. But
really,
I've got one of the original, the things you always used to get in the movies, right? That talked about what was coming up and what the movies were.
Right.
One of the original movie deals from Heavy Metal, and he did. He did a drawing of Den over in the corner of it, so it's got the remark of Den on it. Wow. So Rusty did that for me the other day. So that's another one of those things that has to grace the wall.
That's awesome.
Stuff. And it's gonna grace the wall with the books I'm gonna get signed from you. So they're all gonna have a signed wall of all the different artists that we've dealt with over the years, and then I've got a birthday wall, which is the month and year I was born. It's all the different issues that came out during that month and year. And when I tell people about that collection, that's a really fun collection to do.
Mm-hmm.
There's that one, and I thought about another one the other day. I want to recreate the rack that was there when I started getting into comics. So I'm going to have the day and the month that Comico came out with the Justice Machine 2. So I'm going to take that year imprint and month and go find all the different ones that would have been out on the shelf at that time. And I'm going to do it either in a spinner rack or a flat rack, and we'll put it up in the office as just kind of a memory piece, just to remember back when I got back into comics. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Very
13th cool. Dimension does a great piece that they've been putting out like every week or like every other week of the top 13 books that came out this week in like 1972 or 1948 or whatever, and it's just really cool to look back at the covers. And
oh yeah, I'm always pulling that stuff out at Cracker Barrel. Those things. What happened in 1973? And flipping through it and seeing what the newspaper ads were. And I was very fortunate growing up because both my wife's family did part of it, and then my mom did it, and my grandma did it, and it kept journals. So I can go back to the day I was born and see, what the weather was and what was going on and what they had going on for that day, and those kind of fun, cool things. Just snapshots in time, right? It's all just a bunch of snapshots.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's very cool. I like that.
I just want to run down all the different tiers that you got going on for issue number 5 here, so people can grab a Spicy Pulp number 5 PDF for $5. Yep. You can get the print version for $20.
There's 2 different covers at $20. And the thing about this is that I'm excited because this is the first time I've been able to do add-ons. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that you're not seeing on this initial page. So if you pledge for this cover, you have access to add on the trades, alternate covers, special covers, the pins, the magnets. All of those things become things you can add to your pledge. So like I've noticed very much in this that there are a lot of new backers who are grabbing up the trades, which is very exciting to me. It's nice to see, obviously, more and more people joining the ranks of reading Spicy Pulp. I mean, I have such a tremendous base of people that come back time after time, who I'm hugely appreciative for. And it's also nice to see that, the word's getting out there, and there are people saying, oh, well, this looks cool. And look, there's this whole library of stuff. I mean, it's literally, one's 124-page trade. The other one's 120-page on top of the new 64-page issue 5. And then all the other different, if you're strictly a reader, you can read everything. If you're a collector and there's little things you want to add to that, you can add that. There's different types of covers, and if there's people who want everything, So it's nice to have that opportunity now. Before I had to do it all myself, and I would just have to say, send me a message and I'll put your books together and try and remember, out of these, between 500 and 900 people, which ones, who's going to get what. And now it's kind of nice that everything's right there for them to do that. So you can get the PDFs, you can get all 5.
Oh, nice.
And it's especially for the overseas backers, which it pains me to no end. It infuriates me that I don't have access to an entire planet of readers, because the postal system is just so, and it just went up again. So it went up after I already set up all my tier levels of what the postage is going to cost for international backers. It's almost $40 for under £2 to send anything overseas to anywhere but Canada.
Ouch.
And like that's not fair for them. I mean, no matter what, like regardless of how messed up I think it is, like why, like they can't even have access to material that they want because, and Canada, really? It costs $20 to mail something to Canada? I mean, does it cost it to send it to Michigan? No. It's crazy. And they have to figure out a way to fix that. So it pains me all the time. So the PDFs and the digital stuff is great for them, but I know that so many of them want to have physical copies.
Yeah. I wish they had, reputable print on demand services like I know there's one that Connor from Swords of Silence uses down in Florida, because that's where I got my books from. They do the fulfillment for them, plus they do all the print on demand, plus when he finishes so people can order it after the fact, but when he finishes the campaign, once everything's done, he sends his final numbers in. And, for everybody in like the lower 48, they print and go there.
That's one of the things we've been talking about, because in 1 week I had 8 different calls about fulfillment, and we don't do a fulfillment house, but I'm looking into it because in the cross, as far as fulfillment houses over, since we have the other side of us that's working over in Ireland right now, one of our other divisions, we have the capabilities to do stuff over there. So we're talking about this. Well, whoever's in this continent has this kind of print area. We're talking with some people down in Australia right now about doing some things down there. That way, like you said, you don't have to run these huge, postal costs.
Yeah, the problem is, and there has to be a better inroad. The idea for me would be to have an inroad into Amazon, where you can just use their network of distribution, which is infinitely better than what exists. I had tried Ingram Spark, which has printers all over the place, but the paper quality is not anywhere near what you want.
Yeah.
So while I could do hardcovers and soft covers and everything else, the paper is essentially just like watered down cardboard. It doesn't grab the color. It's not glossy, and they don't customize their stuff to comic size. So then it becomes this sort of 7x10 thing. Instead of traditional what modern comics are. So you have all these elements where ultimately distribution, they third-party distributors, and you're still taking a hit on all that stuff. Whereas I can see that if you do Amazon, because of the way their network is set up, which the USPS and everyone else somebody should come up and say, we're going to do Amazon's model. And I know they don't have Amazon's money, but the other stuff, you're still dealing with middlemen, and the costs are still there, regardless of who does fulfillment and all those other things. So you still face that problem of how expensive it is to ship overseas with any kind of weight and reliability.
That might be a string to pull, because I went to high school with one of the guys that's in one of the over part of the distribution for Amazon. There's a big Amazon distribution center here in Washington. We drive past it all the time.
Yes.
And he rides up here to talk with them about it. And that's a good idea. That might be a conversation I need to have with him next time he comes up this way.
It's just their infrastructure is so much more solid.
True.
than everything else, and they're not beholden to these sort of international, whatever the postal thing that we set up internationally is archaic and it doesn't work anymore. And that's why they keep raising the price every year. For the last 4 years, it's gone up and up and up. And while it's only gone up 9 cents here, like I said, it went from 26. I have to look at it, but Canada was 19 a month ago, and now it's 20 something. And I think international, it was 26 to like Australia. So I think it's closer to 40 than it was before, which is nuts. It doesn't help anyone. It kills small business. I don't know what this fear of I mean, it's capitalism. We are a capitalistic country, so we should be thinking about how we can maximize our revenue across the entire planet for small businesses as well as we do it for large corporations. I don't see the downside on that. I don't see someone on Etsy being able to sell globally and make a profit a problem for anything.
No, and that's why part of the mentality when we decided to go ahead and move forward with Inked was the fact that, you know, we had a chance to and be involved with, and I've sat in all of the big, huge, multi-million-dollar marketing deals for like Sprint PCS and casinos and banks and all these huge global deals, and figured out and was there, right? It did it of all how they marketed. And now I was able to bring that back to small business, right? We're all small business here, and able to do those same sorts of aspects in marketing and how all these different formulas work for something that we love, right? Comics. And that's you're right. We've got to find a better way to do a better mousetrap on the shipping game, because I ship all the time and I'm running the same things right now, you know, and that's why I'm trying to figure out, you know, we moved 3,000 books for Top Dog, which is the comic side of the industry that we have. And that was a scramble. I mean, I'm shipping, you know, 10 short boxes of comics, and just like you said, watching the rate just keep.
Oh my God, it's insane.
You know, and then of course the end part of it is you're trying to deal with the people that bought all these books, and they're buying them a short box at a time, or a couple of them were long boxes that went out, and to try to figure out where the margins are at with this moving target of shipping is just an extra added headache in small business right now.
Yeah, it's so far out of control.
Yeah, I just feel bad for the people that want the books. I mean, I want them to get the books.
And I'm a page turner. I mean, I see digital, I read digitals all the time, but I'm an old school page turner. That's just my preference.
And I'm not, but I appreciate it, and like I want to be able to do all of it. Like I prefer to digital, but I would much rather like give people what they want and whatever it is, and not be hindered by some ridiculous archaic system that says it costs so much money to go through all these loopholes and all these tariffs and all this other nonsense. But we just keep going, and
we'll get there. We'll find a better mousetrap. But let's go ahead and knock out some more of your tiers and talk about some of these covers you got going. And I mean, there's some good stuff here.
Yeah. So we've got Volume 1, the Lady Redbeard, 120-page square-bound trade for $25.
I should have brought one of them up. I have them in the basement. But yeah, I have the ones I have to do print the twos after we get the numbers from this. But like I said, I've seen a lot of uptick in people wanting to get the whole collection, which means that normally they haven't read a Spicy Pulp book at all. And then there's like, you know, I have all kinds of, you can't even see, my thing is just terrible. Anyway.
Well, let's blow you up.
I don't know if it's still going to be too bright, but I mean, this is the second issue, a variant cover. I don't have this one available on this particular campaign. This is a French.
Oh, of course not.
I know. I'm trying to look for stuff everywhere. I'm in the dark too. But yeah, so the two trades. The first one is Lady Redbeard, the complete story, plus a bunch of standalone short science fiction stories and the beginning of the Mecca Monroe story. And then the second one has The Road Witch, which is another complete story told in two parts, but for this, obviously, it's combined. And then it's the introduction of Dude Bro the Barbarian. which his story concludes in 5. This one that we're doing now, and Mecca Monroe continues on for a few more issues, I think. And there's different, a bunch of different covers. Antonio Brandao has done a bunch of different covers for me.
Yeah, he's got the hollow foil.
Yeah, he's going to do the hollow foil, and there's going to be some spot finish. There's a hollow foil for Ricardo Sanchez.
Yep.
And Caval, and
Caval has a virgin hollow foil cover.
Yeah, no text on that one. And it's just going to be his art and Slamet's coloring. And as you can see, there's add-ons, and that's where that comes in, because a couple times people are like, "Well, where's the tier for everything?" And particularly one person today, I guess they kind of placeholdered the $1 pledge, and I don't think that you can access the add-ons with the $1 pledge. So I had to explain to him that if he backs, any one of the other physical pledges, that he'll have access to adding all the other ones. And I had someone reach out to me.
Can we see the add-ons through the updates?
You can't actually. You can only see the add-ons when you pledge for, if you just pledge for issue 5, you'll see all of them.
Right. Okay. It's still in beta test mode, isn't it? Is that what the?
It is.
Yeah.
I finally was able to access that. I probably could have done it in the last one, and I was just too caught up in being used to. I mean, this is the 13th that I've done by myself, and I did probably, I think, 7 or 8 with Jimmy Palmiotti, and we didn't have any access to that stuff earlier on. But yeah, it's somewhere close to 20 successful Kickstarters between myself doing it by myself and doing it with Jimmy. And no, it's great. I mean, I can't say enough about Kickstarter and how great it's been to have this opportunity to reach out to the audience and to find a really loyal core fan base that comes back. And like I said, I do all kinds of different books. I mean, I did a novel, and people showed up and backed that. I did an all ages, oversized graphic novel, and it's just so nice to be able to have that creative outlet in ways that you just don't have to. I always call it the ZZ Top thing, where ZZ Top just basically had one song and they kept making albums with that one song. And I'm always like, I want to make, I'm not saying I'm anything, but I prefer the Beatles model, where they would just try stuff and just keep trying to grow and trying to do different things, and not just say, we're going to make the ZZ Top album. And as much as I love AC/DC, a lot of the AC/DC stuff is all the same. They had a formula and it worked, and they just kept doing it. But for me, I like to just constantly do different things, try different voices, try different mediums, try different genres. And like this next thing it's called Alien Exchange Student, and it's basically an out-of-work dad who's trying to provide for his family decides to bring an exchange student into his home because it's going to make him $500 a month, and it ends up being an alien, and the only one that realizes he's an alien is his son, and he's just baffled by why no one else in the world, including TSA agents at the airport and the internet, doesn't understand that this is an alien here to invade us, and everyone thinks the alien's great and the kid's crazy. So I can't do that kind of thing. I couldn't go to Image and say, look, I have this idea for Alien Exchange Student, and it's a comedy and it's for kids, and it would make a great animated series, and have them go, oh yeah, that's great. You're wonderful. Let's just do that. Because just things don't always work that way. But I know with Kickstarter, if I throw it out there and if people like it, they'll back it. And that's all the proof in the pudding that I need, is that if people want it, they'll come and get it. If they don't want it, it'll die. And that's the end of it. And I prefer that sort of testing ground for doing work than, because I've done the other thing where we recently just got back G.I. Zombie from DC. And Jimmy and I love G.I. Zombie. We created it together and we put this book together, and they didn't really know what to do with it. And so it's nice to have that back and to say, okay, well, now we can do stuff with G.I. Zombie. So that kind of stuff is again, what Kickstarter can bring not just to myself, but other creators who think they have an idea that maybe isn't going to sell anywhere, or maybe isn't, the mainstream isn't ready for.
You're the second creator I've talked to this week that's bought back something that they've created at some point in time in their career. So those opportunities are definitely nice to have. And then the other key thing I think you hit on is the fact that with being an indie creator, that you have, you talked about the papers. That's the other thing that other creators and I talk about all the time. In fact, you get to pick everything, right? It's
Right.
all an all-encompassing creation. It's not just the writing or the art. It's a combination of the paper and, like you said, the gloss and the thickness. Whether I do a cardstock cover, if I do whatever the amount of pages that you want to do in the pagination, and that's all open to what you as a creator want to envision and put out there for a product. And that's
you have complete control over the entire project, merchandising, everything.
I would rather live by the sword and die by the sword than have some kind of corporate structure decide that it doesn't work for them. You know what I mean? It's always been, I've always been very aware of the fact that in certain kinds of cultures, the person behind you is trying to trip you up so they can get in front of you. And in this, it's the audience decides, the readers, the buyers, the consumers, however you want to phrase it, they decide whether you live or die based on what you do and not what you're put in a position to do, or you have to make sacrifices, or you have to say, well, the publishing plan or the branding you can't go against branding. And I really like that. And I know it's probably crazy to most people because I know a lot of people like security, and there's a lot more security in doing it the other way. But at the end of the day, I feel like if I fail, I tried and I failed on my own merit, and I succeed on my own merit rather than it being something else.
That's definitely an admirable way to look at it, because it's a tall order, and it's not one of those kind of things. It's not for everybody, and it's great when things come together and everything's hitting on all cylinders, right? I mean, it's a great. I always kind of, since I built cars all my life, I kind of compare the whole assembly of a comic and the marketing of it and everything is basically building a motor, right? You have all these moving parts, and they all have to do certain things at certain times, and the clearances have to be just right. But man, when it's all firing on all cylinders and ripping down the track, I mean, it's really something. And we're at the point with this book where it's just ripping down the track, and that's an awe-inspiring thing to see.
It's fun. It's great, and I wouldn't do it any other way at this point, for sure.
And definitely let me know when you do something with G.I. Zombie, because I actually bought that book.
That was fun. I just reread a bunch. Like sometimes you get so separated from things that you go back and you read them and you're like, oh, wait, this was terrible. Or, oh, I really was hitting on something here. That happened recently with Random Acts of Violence. I told Jay Baruchel that his version of the book is better as the film than we did. And Jimmy and I were talking. I'm like, I hadn't read Random Acts of Violence since 2008. And then I watched Jay's interpretation in the film, and I was like, I'm digging this. I'm like, it's doing stuff that I like. The idea was there, but the execution didn't happen in the comic the way that he kind of picked up on it. And I said to him, like, I think I like your version better. And it's a weird thing to say to someone that, oh, you made an adaptation of something I did, but I feel like he had the space and the detachment from it to look at it objectively and go, this is what works. This is stuff this is fat that needed to be trimmed. So it's kind of fun. But when I went back and started rereading G.I. Zombie, I was like, oh my God, this book was so much fun. That's probably why it failed.
It just had the wrong audience.
Yeah, it was just,
well, okay, some of the wrong audience, because I was part of that audience.
Right, but I mean, it wasn't. It's not a superhero universe comic at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, I looked at it when I saw the first one on the rack at the shop. I looked at it. I go, G.I. Zombie, and all I could think was, it's somewhere between G.I. Combat and iZombie. I'm like, Well, I love GI Combat. I missed that book, so grab it and go, yeah, put me down for this one too.
It's funny because it was a joke. Jimmy and I were joking around with Dan DiDio, and it was like, why do you want to name a book this? Why don't we just call anything? Let's just call it GI Zombie. And Dan's eyes got like this big, and he was like, GI Zombie. And we're like, yeah, GI Zombie. But it was initially just that same kind of sense of just, why can't we do this? Like, if you want to be absurd or you want to throw two words together or have fun with something, how do you not do GI Zombie? And that's I'm worried that kind of thing, that kind of mentality in the mainstream is probably getting marginalized over time because these corporations are so much larger and there's so much more into licensing and taking the characters and saying, how do we put them into every demographic possible to generate revenue? And it's that kind
of. I always go back to the ad lib moments in movies that really I'm a big movie buff and that history buff and movie buff, so that I like these historical moments in movies that when Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder are coming through and talking and just doing the whole prison scene, right, and stir crazy,
right?
That's just them riffing for 10 minutes, walking down the walkway, talking about getting put into prison and about how bad they are, and that stuck. That became a thing.
Right.
They told, in Smokey and the Bandit with the sheriff, they told Jackie Gleason, just cuss a lot, and that's what he did. That was his only art direction in the entire Smokey and the Bandit thing, was just cuss a lot, just have fun with it, and that was it. That's what he ad-libbed every line in that show, and you could just go back to all these different movie moments, when and I've got an Indiana Jones figure sitting off to the side here. When Indiana Jones, they got the guy that does all the things with the swords, right? And and he just pulls out a gun and shoots him. That was an ad-lib moment. That was just something that was done,
It's like David Lynch with Happy Accidents.
Yeah. All those kind of things. You're just like, it works.
That's actually how I've been working for the last 2 years. Essentially, just giving the artist the most basic, like Stanley Jack Kirby script. This is what happens in this issue. This is what happens across these 2 or 3 pages. Mm-hmm. And it's just a chunk of text. And then I just go back in and look at the art and I'm like, whoa, I didn't think of this. He drew it a certain way. I'm like, now I can make a joke here. Or now I have a moment to breathe. And after writing, I started out writing really dense scripts where it was just like, there's no art. The balloon is this big and there's little characters scrunched on in the corner to being like, if I just give you this, let's just figure out where it goes from there. And sometimes it's brilliant and sometimes it is not. It's a lot of work. And I'm like, can you just redraw this? But more often than not lately, it's been this sort of situation where it's so fresh and organic and fluid that I don't know why I didn't work that way before, other than I wasn't allowed to.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem in, not just the comic field, but, many other fields too, that, it's like there's this strict code of conduct and, they want everybody, shoulders back, chest out, and, at attention 24/7. Instead of, giving, creators any creativity, really.
Yeah. It's very much a, I want to say COVID style environment, stay 6 feet apart and here's your dot. Don't move off your dot. And if you, I love the one when you're walking in Walmart and they tried at some point to direct traffic in Walmart. And people would give you the eye, right? If you're going up the wrong way, right? You're disrupting the social system. And I joked with one of what I call them secret shoppers, the guys and girls that run around with all the blue totes and they're shopping for somebody that ordered online.
Yep.
And they're havoc in the stores to me. I mean, they're running into people's carts and they're doing all kind of crazy things and the stores are filling up with them. But anyway, one of them was zipping down the aisle and they're zipping down the wrong way. I just had to laugh at that for a moment. And I picked with him. I was like, you know what? kind of breaking your own rules at this point.
Well, it's funny because that's what I do all the time. And it started out where everyone was freaking out all the time if you were going the wrong way. And it was like there were varying levels of hysteria where it was like mumbling and then it was screaming. And then everyone sort of started to like ease off on it. And everyone was like, fuck it, I'm just going to do whatever.
Yeah, it's like when toilet paper was gone, right? The first, I've got video when the first 2 weeks everything hit. And we were still in Colorado, and Colorado became a hot spot instantly for this thing. And I've got video I posted up on Facebook, and I think I went there for like ink cartridges for the printer. I didn't even need groceries at the point. And I'm just walking up the aisles going, check this out. And then there's no trace of toilet paper. No. And what was funny was when we had the kids come up for Christmas, I think I bought like 200 rolls of toilet paper. Like when it surfaced again, and that's on comedy shows now where they're sitting on whole pallets of toilet paper, right, that they've ordered. But yeah, it's a thing, right? I mean, if we'd had stock in toilet paper and Clorox, we'd all be retired. You could write whatever you want, and it'd all just be for fun at that point.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It was the best thing that could happen to me.
Oh yeah, we're going against the grain, right? Man,
it's weird. I lost 34 pounds. I was like out of the house all the time. It worked out really well, and I know a lot of people really suffer, and I can't. I mean, I'm in no position to get COVID. I do not have the health system for it.
Yeah.
But I had to go. I had to go do it because things happened, and the security and everything that was going on in our lives, and the health insurance and everything went right out the window.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I can either sit here on the couch waiting for something to happen, or I can go do something and just hope for the best. But back to your thing about the aisle stuff. At a certain point, I was kind of like, I'm in 7 supermarkets a day shopping all the time. No one gets mad at the employees. So I was like, think of me as an employee, because they used to yell at me. And I used to wear this mask because my daughter had all these anime masks, and it had a big smile on it.
Mm-hmm.
And people used to just savage me all the time. They used to talk trash to me. They used to be like, you need to slow down. And I put a black mask on, and that percentage went down to 0.1 of people talking trash to me just because I had a black mask instead of a smiley mask. Yeah. And I thought that's an interesting psychological thing to experience. That people thought, oh, I can just abuse this guy because he's smiling.
Here's a tie-in with that you're going to love. And I was a big psychology guy in college, and I learned that quickly as a young ad exec in college because I worked at the ad firms while I was still going to college. So the days I was doing art classes and getting in there and having everything splattered across you and just really getting into something, those days versus the days I had to go to work when I would be in the tie, right, the white shirt and everything, people are opening doors and they're smiling at you and talking to you and everything's great. The days that I had art classes and I was trying to go over to the bookstore to get something done or go run to McDonald's to get something to eat in between classes, people looked at you like you were just nothing. And I used to tell people, like, they kind of look at you and have clay splattered or something from and then I was a house painter. I'm basically just taking college classes to kind of, fill some time because I'm bored. But, I'm really just, I just got through spackling the house. And, I'd go in this little mini story of just, they didn't have any business. Why were you judging me,
Right.
But they do, man. Like you said, that's a great deal about the mask because we each have, my wife and I got a whole pile of masks, right? And I've got one that's the Joker. And that one, like you said, versus that I've got one that's camouflage and one that's just black. And you're right, man. You were completely judged by the mask that you're wearing at the time. So that's almost kind of like it's almost we all wear masks at some point, right? And hats and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's literally being judged on what you're coming across and wearing. I mean,
yeah, I bought those gator masks, and then I had a doctor's appointment at the hospital. And I go to the hospital, and they go, whoa, do you have a hospital mask? I go, why would I? I don't work at the hospital. He goes, well, we don't allow gators. I go, why? His mask is fine? He goes, yep. And it was just a cloth mask. It's a black cloth mask with the 2 air loops. I go, look, this is cloth. That's cloth.
It was, for one thing, and I'll just touch upon this briefly. For one thing, airports are such a reminder of the class system, right? From the medieval times, right? All the way from sitting in the back of the plane to first class, right? It's just a reminder of that time in the world. Well, it's like masks have almost fallen that same kind of thing, because and that really hit me, and I really sat back in the airport, kind of took it all in. I'm a people watcher. So I was watching, as you said, all these different people go by, and some people had pretty much a Kleenex, if nothing else, over them, or the chin strap guy. And then there, like I said, there's all these different levels of, HEPA filter guy, and, the neck thing, right, that goes over your neck and half your face, and or the person that ties the bandana. It's almost like a class system now. There's all these different, and for lack of a better term, genre of mask out there. It's just it's kind of become a thing. It's not even, some people try to make it where it's a fashion thing. Some people it's just a thing, right? And some people don't even wear a mask at all. I mean, they're getting kind of a little I don't know if they're trying to rebel or what, but I've gone to the grocery stores lately, and there's people that, the big Bubbas of the world that are bulletproof and show up in the 8-foot truck, and they get out and they don't put on a mask. They're just, they're too bad for COVID, right? They're gonna go in the store and not do anything, and nobody tells them anything. I mean, a month ago here in Washington, there was literally guards, not armed guards, but guards sitting out front, and you couldn't go in. You didn't have a mask. That was it. And they've gotten a little lax with that now, but it's become its own class system to me.
No, I can definitely see it. I mean, I have seen it for sure. It's crazy.
Yeah, it just bugs me.
But on the happier side of things, when we're not having to deal with that kind of stuff, we have such a great book to go back to, and
we have comics.
Yeah, we have the fun stuff we can touch upon, and the memories and the collections. It looks like I just pulled up the site, and it's closing in on 600 backers, which is awesome, and it's fixing to tick up. It's right at almost 17.5 and ticking right away. So,
that's great.
It's doing its thing, man. It's awesome. Congratulations. It's a great book, great series, and for those to be able to reach back to. That's what I love with all the Kickstarters that have come this kind of far in their Kickstarter careers, that you can give the opportunity for people to reach back and find issues they didn't have before, and start putting. But these are all basically standalones anyway. But still, to be able to reach back and get that idea of a collective is just awesome.
Well, yeah, to know that there's more material out there, so it's not just and it's the thing that I really want to stress is that I deliver. And I know there's definitely been instances where, everyone makes mistakes. You sometimes miss books. There are people who come to me and they say, well, I didn't get my book because, they didn't fill their survey out last year or whatever. And I'm like, all right, that's it. I just get the book out. It's not even anything to think about after that. I'm just like, okay, I look it up. I see where the tracking is. I see who did. Sometimes people just take forever to do something, and sometimes they don't. And the idea is that I just want to make sure everybody gets their books and everyone's happy. And if you're a postal worker, please be kinder to the packaging, because I don't know what happens. I don't know if there's a vendetta against certain envelopes, but I'm always astounded when people tell me that and show me, they send me pictures of I'm like, did they use a chainsaw to put this in your mailbox? But the bottom line is I just want people to know that if they want their books, they're going to get their books, and I'm always accessible, and you can always talk to me. Maybe there's a couple days where I'm working and I can't get to the computer. I know that seems illogical. And the problem too is that Kickstarter's mobile app is just not very good. I wish they would fix that. It's just not very intuitive, but you get your books, and I've been doing this enough so that's a priority to me, just as much as everything we talked about, story and escapism. It's you're my customer. You're the person that I want to make sure is happy at the end of the day. Regardless, it's not a distributor. I'm not going through Diamond. It's me. It's literally me at my kitchen table with all these comics spread out, packing, bagging, boarding, going to the post office. I have a great relationship with the people at the post office because I see them so many different times a year with tons of packages. They always joke because I guess there was a woman who has a similar thing where she prints postage at home and brings, I don't know if it's as many as I bring, but she comes at like closing time. And they're like, really, we got to process 100 packages at closing time. And so I walked in there and they were like, this guy does it right. This guy brings it in at 2:00 in the afternoon and we all get our pack. I'm like, so my priority is always making sure everyone's happy with what they get. And sometimes the story's not for you. I definitely have had that happen. There was the last Kickstarter, there was a woman who said, the writing's good, the art is beautiful, but it's just not for me. And I'm like, great, but maybe something else will be for you. Maybe the next thing I do will be something, but I'm happy you backed it. And and I just had to replace 2 packages at the post office. I had metal foil covers and those are very fragile. And I guess they were trying to kick field goals with them or something. So,
I'm on the fence about I have enough material now to write a story on just mail experiences, and I'm on the fence about it because I have pictures to back all this stuff up too, and I literally had one that it looked like someone shot it with a gun or it was skewed with an arrow or something. For a present for my wife for our anniversary, I'd gotten a Chris Stapleton signed photograph and some other things that had to kind of do with our anniversary, and it was a Wonder Woman was the other one. It was Linda Carter, and it was literally skewered. I mean, there was no doubt about it. It was a complete hole through and through, all the way through the COA. And I bring that to the post office. I'm like, what is this? How does this happen? What machine,
right.
does this? And all the Geminis that I get that are been dropped on their head at some point. It's just I could.
And it's a thing because this has been probably the toughest year. I mean, past year for post office workers, I think. And I have absolute respect for them. And whatever, but things happen. And fortunately for me, it's been a small percentage. Like it hasn't been like mass,
right?
Because that would crush me. Because there's only, these things I run really tight margins, and the numbers are where they are, and I want to make sure everybody gets their books, but I also can't, I don't have the opportunity to sit on a bunch of inventory.
Right. It's
not Shark Tank. But for the most part, I have no complaints. And, I write little messages on there. Somebody says, leave it by the green post. And I try and imagine what an English cottage house looks like in the UK, where they're putting it by the green box, but not in the front and the back. But like that's stuff that keeps me up at night because I'm like, I want to make sure that they get it and it's there for them, because it's an investment, especially like I said, overseas with all that shipping and everything. It's like I know how I don't know if I mentioned my best friend's mom used to work at Heroes World, and she would not bring the books home. And I'd be like, did you bring the books? And she'd be like, no, I didn't get to it. Did you bring it like 4 or 5 days in a row? I'd be like, did you get the books? And she's like, no. So there's a part of me that's always like that disappointment of knowing that it should be there and it's not there. So I was kind of like, especially with comics, I guess.
Oh yeah. There's a friend of mine that would mean mug the postal truck. He'd literally, he was in another country and he would just wants to go by, and he's on the phone with me and he knows he's got a package coming from me. And I've given him the tracking number. He said, it's arriving today. I was like, yeah. He said, I just saw it go by. I said, well, it's on the truck. And goes back the other way. And I'm on the phone with him for the whole experience. And I'm on the phone for like 20 minutes. And I'm like, just run it down then. Just go to the truck, man. Just like ice cream. Just go get your treat, Just
I wish I could run the mail truck down with my wheelchair because oh man. I bought because my buddy Thomas that I do the OK Boomer podcast with had just bought like a brand new 10.5-inch tablet. He says it's perfect for reading comics, and we have to read X amount of comics a week because of reviews and on top of the news and follow the storylines and everything.
Sure.
And I go, great. It was on sale for $197. The second I pressed buy, it was sold out, and the price went up to like $235. That was 6 days ago.
Oh my God!
I have yet to get the tablet in. I bought it from Walmart.com. that's supposed to have 2-day delivery.
Mm.
Oh, I gave the post office hell for that the other day when I was bouncing packages off because I was
they're
like,
sending it FedEx.
Yeah.
FedEx was like, oh, we never received it.
Yeah,
I have to wait 48. I have to wait like an additional 2 days now, just for them to go through all their processing to refund me the $240, whatever it was.
It kind of reminds me right now of, it's kind of like the post office situation is kind of like gas prices. When gas prices got so high, when they got into $3 and $4, we knew it was never going to break $1 again, right? Those days are gone. It's not going to, and that's to me kind of, I'm afraid that's where the postal system is getting right now. Like, we've accepted so much bad, right? We just haven't revolted. We've accepted it. And like you said, I'm like you, I get a chance to talk to the postal people. I get to know them all the time. I mean, the one back in Colorado I got to know all the time, and he was a retired history professor. And I'd work in there. I knew what drink he wanted, so I'd bring him a drink. I'd bring him a tea from the store down the road, and we just chat for a second when I'm trying to process all these boxes, trying to do something to break out the monotony of the day, right?
Right.
And but then the ones here, there's a UPS store just a couple blocks away, which is awesome because I don't have to go 14 miles to the post office. I can just, for an extra $1 or so in difference, I can just go right there and do everything. And I was picking with them because they said like, oh, it's going to be there in 2 days. I was like, no, it's not. don't play with my emotions. I'm not even going to tell the customer that. I'm going to give them the tracking number. I'm going to say, look for it in about a week. Oh no, it's guaranteed. But no, it's not. don't even play with me like that. So yeah, well, I'm sorry about your encounter with that because my wife just ran into some things. She is, poor thing, she's forever in the Amazon refunding basket for something going awry, and I don't know they need to get. They've slipped, and I know they'll probably watch this podcast and probably sue me now, but they've slipped to me recently in the last 6 months or so in their abilities, and that's on demand. I know that's because they've got growing pains right now, and they are trying to supply. They're actually renting out areas in shopping centers that aren't open up as Amazon stores. It's just there's vacant space in the mall because these stores are shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon's new business plan is to rent that space as another warehouse to change around their distribution chains. So,
they just built like a huge warehouse the next town over from me a couple of years ago, and I mean it takes up like that warehouse thing for Amazon takes up like 6 city blocks.
Oh yeah, they're ridiculous.
It's crazy, but there's nothing that comes out of there that's bigger than a bread box. all the bigger things are like from a main distribution.
Well, I grabbed some Amazon boxes the other day that came in, and my wife was about to toss them in the trash. I was like, oh no, those are gold. She's like, what do you mean? I said, no, I'm reusing those boxes because they have mastered the size and of efficiency of what to be able to ship that thing for. So,
well, not just that. If you got porch pirates around you, and you got a couple of dogs, you can, when you do the pooper scooper, you dump it in that box and just leave it out on the sidewalk for them.
That's a thing now too. We could talk about this on a different podcast, but I'm having a hard time with that commercial about doing your business in a box and shipping it off to go get checked out. I mean, and they make a cute little fun little cartoony box that runs around that you gotta do your stuff in and then ship it. I don't know. I'm having a hard time with that one.
I'm still waiting for my results back, but I shipped mine to Pelosi's house. So
yeah. I mean, that was like a high school prank when I was growing up. Now it's like a thing.
Yeah, because you used to light it on fire though.
So it was a thing. Yeah,
they skipped that whole process.
They took the fun out of it.
Yeah, they need to go back and watch the Marty McFly.
Well, I can tell people I grew up in the South and we did some crazy, stupid stuff. We set a lot of stuff on fire growing up. I mean, I'm not even gonna. We went through a lot of gasoline and matches back when I was a kid and had a lot of fun. But it's fun to go back through that. But I definitely appreciate. I'm gonna have to jump off, but I definitely appreciate hanging out with you guys. And again, just to say, I know it's a mouthful, but just it's such a wonderful piece. And I'm not just saying that. I mean, from one creator to another, it's just I really enjoyed and being a fan of Pulp and the collections and the collaborative. It's just a nice piece all the way around.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, congratulations, and hopefully it'll hit that 20K mark. So the ever expanding fan base you're growing here on Kickstarter will get that holofoil print as well as the other 3.
I'm hopeful. Definitely.
It's pretty close. There's still like
about
2
weeks.
Yep.
Just over 2 weeks. By a day, I think, day and a half.
We got a whole half a campaign left to reach out there. So we're hard at it on our side.
Plenty of time. It was wonderful meeting you. Now I can I can put a face with the name from all your stuff that I've read. Now I'm gonna have to dig through books, and I'll have to shoot Kevin a picture. Look, I found G.I. Zombie.
Look at my picture. Look at my stuff. Yeah. Oh,
I've been notoriously under the radar for a long time. I don't usually go to cons. I always told Jimmy I just want to do the work. I don't want to do the famous stuff. But
I kind of put you in. That's kind of like the Neil Peart of things, right?
God, that's a huge compliment. I mean, Neil is amazing.
He didn't. Yeah, and I connect with Neil because I was a drummer growing up, and he didn't do the handshakes, right? He was at the concert, but he didn't go out and hang out with the fans. He just did his thing, and he was respected for that. And I can applaud that.
He was talented. He was special for sure.
He was, and I love music, and I love the whole, and that's where the whole, and I kind of circle back around to that's why we're doing the roadshow thing, because it is taking you as the creator, right, and treating you like the rock star and letting you go around this tour and talk about what a great, wonderful thing you got coming up. And that's the fun in that, right? It's tied back to that whole genre of music and fun and travel that we all grew up with. I mean, I got a chance I bumped into 38 Special a couple flights ago, and that was purely by accident. I mean, I'm fixing to get on, and these guys are talking, and I could tell they're talking music, and I could tell they're well-seasoned travelers by the way they're packed. And it's like, I know this from somewhere. I can't place them, but and I go to get on the plane, and the guy turns to me, and there's my chance, right? He goes, "Hey, man, did you see where I'm supposed to put my bag? Because I must have missed it." I was like, "Yeah, man, it's like 20 foot back that way is where you go stash the stuff." I was like, "But wait a minute, what do you do? Because I know it's something in music." And he's like, "We're the band 38 Special." And I could talk to the drummer and the guitarist and everything. I mean, it was just kind of I got to hang out with 38 Special. What more of a travel moment do you get to do with that, right?
That's awesome.
But it's just one of those crazy, weird trip things, right? One of those kind of airport things that you get to do.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's funny when you run into people in airports. And 38 Special, I think, that's 1982. That's Micronauts. I used to listen to Hold On Loosely while reading Micronauts comics. So there's like a
there you go
thing in there. I was a little kid.
They what was funny was that the total rock star life. They got off the plane, and this was in Shreveport, Louisiana, and they go. One guy goes, "Where are we even at?" He's like, "Man, I don't care. We're just here to play." He didn't have not a care in the world. He had the fedora on, and he had all the rings on his fingers, and he was just there to go have a good time and play. He didn't care what city it was. The total rock star life. It was amazing.
Crazy. I can't even imagine it.
Hopefully we get a taste of the rock star life. We get a chance to go on these tours. I know you got a couple more shows coming up with us here shortly, so we're just gonna have a lot of fun, man. We're here to just hang out and
just want to keep making comics and telling people about them. So.
Spread the love, man.
I'm gonna download the audio from this episode, and it'll be up on ageofradio.org. So if anybody listens to it over there, they know to come and find Creators Outlet on YouTube, or to look for it on the Outright Geekery channel to see any of the cool pulp art we were looking at during this episode.
Yeah, I'll do like the other ones. I'll wrap it back up in a rewind session, and we'll put it on the cassette. I don't know if I've showed it to you or not, Justin, but we do a throwback to the old 80s cassette, and I put stickers on it of all the different things it's got going on, and then that link is a mega link, and it has all the different the visual part of the podcast, the audio part of the podcast. It's all on one link, and I'll throw that to you when I get it built. So,
all right, very cool.
We'll be able to share that out there, and it'll be a real good time. Well, Will, thanks again for having us.
Yes, thank you, Will.
Thanks. It was a great time, and the book looks great. Congratulations on funding another project, and
thank you.
We'll look forward to the next,
right.
and I'll be crossing my fingers for some GI Zombie.
Well, we got plans.